Friends and family, welcome back to Chrauma. Hey, Sam.
Episode 9.
Episode 9. So I think when we started all this, the team said, let's do 10 and see where we're at. Mm-hmm. So, this might be not the season finale, but the one before that. And we'll see where we go from there. So heads up to you guys, for all the listeners out there. It's kind of crazy. It started off, I don't know, we talked about this like 2 years ago, and we're here, so it's kind of cool.
It's quite a journey. Yeah.
I'm back from my America tour, finally. For those that don't know, I took this month off to just freaking travel the United States, and it's finally over. Ate a ton of good food, made memories with family and friends. Ray and I went to Hawaii for a little bit. And I was telling these guys off air, it was terrible for my body. I was in my peak physical condition, mentally, everything. I just lost all my gains. Oh my God. But it was really good for my soul.
There you go. Yeah.
So hopefully it's gonna recharge the batteries, and I start my new job next Tuesday.
Let's get it.
Yeah. So there's that.
Good for you.
And what else? What else? We're talking about how Phil Mickelson won the PGA Championship.
My guy.
So your guy. It's kind of funny. 70% of our listeners are females. I'm going to assume they don't watch golf, so I don't know if they care.
How would you assume that? They might be avid golfers. Who knows?
You're right. I'm being ignorant right now.
Yeah, you're being ignorant right now.
My bad, ladies. My bad. G1's here. She could kick all of our asses at golf, too. So,
yeah.
So today, I thought it would be cool. I kind of surprised these guys because typically, there's kind of different processes on how we outline what we want to talk about. But for this episode, I thought it would be cool to transition. Last time we talked about, what is going to be my framework for finding a church.
Yeah.
This time around, I know that regardless of where I go, I'm going to face some turbulence. There's going to be some friction. It's not always going to be hunky-dory.
Right.
So how do I either proactively think about it, prepare for myself, or just navigate it in real time?
Right.
Because what is it? One of my favorite quotes is insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. So I want to be able to take everything we've talked about, all of my past traumas and scars, and turn that into wisdom and have a different experience this go around.
Yeah, that's good.
So I'm going to just kind of share my thoughts about it's kind of like when you go through a heartbreak or a bad relationship and you go into a new one and you're like, okay, I learned these things, and be super hyper conscious of that.
Sure.
So that's kind of how I'm thinking about it now. Definitely want to get your thoughts. You've led churches I've been to. We've gone to church together. You know my blind spots and just my tendencies, I guess. I want to get your thoughts as well.
Yeah.
Or even you, having been being a pastor, things that you saw where you're like, ooh, I wish those that are hurt and that are considering coming back to church would be mindful of this or wary of that.
Right,
that kind of
right.
stuff.
That's good. Yeah.
I think the first thing for me is when I join another church, one of the biggest things that I'm going to be conscious of is I'm going to make it my relationship with God and not use the church or the pastor or the community as a conduit to God.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
What do you mean by conduit?
I used to give too much power to leadership and to pastors where I would need them to validate my faith.
Okay.
I would need them to be the bridge from me to God.
Yeah.
And it almost felt like I didn't have my one-on-one relationship with God.
Yeah.
It was through this figure, through this body, through this church.
Yeah. Very dependent.
And without them, I'm not that close to God. And we talked about in a past episode, it was first-hand knowledge versus second-hand knowledge, right? I want to know that I'm good with God. I want to know what I believe in.
Yeah.
And I don't want to wait for people or depend on people to validate what I have or what I believe.
Sure.
I want to own my faith. I want to own my relationship.
Yeah. Which you should. This is your journey. This is your faith.
Right.
This is your relationship that you got to be able to own up and to be able to, because it takes away the criticism of saying, oh, the pastor did this, or the congregation did this, or the building's like this.
Yeah.
It takes away blame, and it allows yourself to say, this is what God has done in my life, and it makes it that much more authentic and real, right?
100%.
And so that's good. I think that's a powerful way to look at it. All these other things enhance and collectively allow us to see God, to know God in different avenues. So we want to be, inspired and connected with. But I think you're right. I think there's got to be a sense of ownership as to this is this is me and the Lord, and no one's gonna take that away from me.
Right. Similar to that, I'm actually going to I'm gonna through my two eyes and my experience, I'm gonna flatten my experience of a church. Meaning, apologies to whatever church I'm gonna go to next. I'm gonna be a handful probably.
Probably.
But probably. But I am going to very much try to abstract hierarchy. I think part of this is being Asian American, but I would grow up and we talked about this before. We're taught what to think, but not how to think. So I used to go to church officials, pastors, leaders, and ask them questions about like, what's the answer to this?
Yeah.
What's this and that?
Yeah.
And then instead of doing that, I'm going to ask or approach it from a perspective of, how do you think about this? What do you believe and why? Don't tell me what to think, but like put it all out there so I can observe on myself and make my decision for myself.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I guess said another way, there's just going to be a lot more boundaries. Healthy boundaries.
Right.
But boundaries so that I can feel very good about, similar to the last thing, decisions I'm making, beliefs I'm taking on, and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And just being Asian, it's just like the concept of going to any organization and not being so hierarchical and structured and that kind of thing, I think is actually going to benefit me because it's going to be less about formality and tradition. Or maybe I'll say it like this. I'm going to be way less religious and way more like spiritual. So
Sure.
what are your reactions there?
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're trying to say, and I think that in terms of spirituality, you want to have this connectedness with God and discover more of yourself. I think that's how do I live faithfully, right? How do I live faithfully before the Lord and to myself and to my family and in my community? I think that's great. I think I think the part of religion that I think people get jaded by is the idea that structure, tradition are negative things. When to me it enhances our perspective to be able to experience God in a way that is, like, for example, okay, I'll put it this way. I love liturgy. Liturgy is basically like a call and response. Essentially, what happens is
Sam, what the hell is liturgy?
Yeah, okay. It's like a formal kind of reading, if you will, right? Okay. So basically, a liturgy helps us understand my position, God's position, my role, God's role, and how do we weave that in together. So basically, what liturgies do is there's like a statement that the congregation makes, and then a statement that we hear perhaps God make, right? And so it's this idea that as I come before my community in this manner, I'm saying this, and then there's a call to God saying this is how God responds to that. And so liturgy is like it's like an old school way of being able to connect with God using words that were formulated by people who have been through all kinds of things that help us to connect with God when I don't have the words to speak. If that makes sense. Is
this the thing where like the congregation stands up and there's a little pamphlet and you read something and the pastor reads something Okay. Yeah. You love that?
I do. I think sometimes spirituality could be both beneficial and dangerous simply because it becomes way too subjective as to how I want God to be, rather than understanding God in the most biblical way possible, right? And so I think from my experience, because I've seen so many people skew and misuse the name of God, the biblical text in so many ways that benefit them, that manipulate, hurt, abuse other people, then I'm like, I want to be as straight and as biblical as I possibly can, because I'm believing that this way allows us to really be just that, like, Christian.
Interesting.
And so not a lot of people like that because they feel like tradition and all that other stuff is like restricting.
Ray's shaking his head.
But I feel it liberating because it helps us understand this is actually the true faith that allows us to see God for who He really is.
I feel that because I'm not gonna lie, as you described that. Okay, actually, for those that didn't maybe follow that all the way through, this was my experience of it. One time, Ray and I were going to a church, first time ever, worship, intro, welcome to the service, this is who we are. And literally, everyone stands up. The pastor at the top will like read some I don't know, maybe I can liken it to a mission statement or like a unifying theme or whatever, and then the body will chant something back. I was instantly turned off. Like, in fact, that was one of our we looked at each other like, what the hell is going on? Like, are we speaking an incantation on ourselves right now? Like, what's going on? But I get what you're saying, because I would say you're much more, maybe it's because you're a pastor, maybe not, but you are much more of a purist, I would say, in like Christianity.
Sure.
Right? Whereas like, I think I'm a little bit more liberal and I feel like you've called me reformist once. But I get where you're coming from as well, because you're saying like, dude, at some point shit becomes anarchy. Like you can't pick and choose how you want God to be. There is a black and white in some regards, and so we needed to hold tight to what is true and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I want to be able to know like what I'm saying. Like I think sometimes when we like approach prayer, it's like I don't know if my prayers mean anything. Like I don't know if there's a response to prayer. Like is God really doing something? And liturgy, what it does is as I be able to communicate, these are my prayers, like this is what I'm trying to communicate, there is this narrative or this reply that helps us say, okay, this is the response of God that I could receive. That gives a genuine peace as to okay, there is this genuine relationship and activity with God in my life as well as me with God that helps grow my faith. You know what I mean? So
it's almost like a baseline or a home base of like intention and like will to ground you. Actually, okay, that said like that, I kind of like that, because another thing I was gonna say is, gone are the days. I want to be impeccable with my word, not just what I say to other people, but what I'm praying. What I'm singing. I'm not just gonna sing words on a projector because they're up there anymore.
Right.
And to be honest, when it comes to prayer, I feel like my prayer muscles have atrophied, because it's like when you grow up in the church, you have the same like opener, you have the same ending like words and all that kind of stuff. And it sounds kind of weird to say or feels weird to say, but like I haven't prayed like that for a while. But it was it was just going through the motions. Dear Heavenly Father, bless these hands that have prepared these food for us. Right. We ask for health, and and it's just like there's no connection, there's no emotion. Right. And I was like, damn, just feels like a fucking rule book that we're following right now. Right. So I'm definitely gonna do away with that, and I'm actually gonna ask myself, like, do you fuck with what's being said? Do you really believe in what you're praying out and worshiping? Because I feel like even at a subconscious level, the more that I would fake it to make it, I was losing credibility with myself. And I was eroding kind of the confidence in my faith. And it was I just felt like a robot. Because that's why when I said I was turned off by the liturgy thing, I honestly felt like I was like back to that story with me and Ray going to my church. As soon as we were doing that, I was like, brainwashing has begun. Like here we go. We're getting programmed. So
I think part of the journey that I think a lot of us are going to go on is being able to see God even in this creation of the church. You know what I mean? And so that's going to be the tough thing, is like how do I balance out this idea of like being man-made versus God-made? Like
you talking about church being
okay. Because I think initially everyone's antennas are gonna be up. Like, how do I know this guy is for real, or this woman? How do I know this organization or church is for real? Are they trying to just take my money? Like, are they being authentic, or are they just trying to do church? You know what I mean? So there's gonna be this tension that I think everyone needs to be aware of. But I think even in the midst of that is being open to the things of God, because it's still God's people, God's church, that we would be able to be open to anything and everything. But at the same time, perhaps being guarded as to, I'm not going to allow myself to be hurt like I once was before. Right? So there's like different markers that I think we just, we will slowly but surely travel into, you know? And so that would be my encouragement, is allow yourself to be open hand to different experiences, maybe even different messages, and hope and pray that your faith grows in knowing a very real God.
I like that. Another thing that just came to mind, and I think I need to kind of process this out as I share it. I'm going to be way less emotional about Christianity.
Okay.
Caveat, I consider myself a really fucking emotional dude. Like, I love watching movies and like feeling. Like, I love hearing stories or music and just
yeah.
connecting with people. I love. People call me. My girlfriend says I'm overly emotional at times, and that's cool. And I don't think being emotional is bad. I think that's what makes us human. I think the best parts of humanity is emotion. But I don't want to make decisions off of emotion.
Sure.
And so that's actually one of my biggest beefs with church, and we've talked about this. I feel like the way that church is done, it almost takes advantage of that emotional high, and that's the thing. It's a high. Emotions are temporary; they're fleeting.
Right.
Whereas, like, think about what Christianity is. To commit, accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, and commit to this religion. You are literally saying, "I'm going to dedicate every fiber of my being and my life on this earth to serving a God." Right? And so, in my experience at church, how many altar calls have I been to where I'm just at a retreat or a camp or whatever, they're pumping the music and everyone's crying, and I don't even know why. I'm just like, oh my God is real. Yeah. And they're like, all right, now who wants to give their life to the Lord? Or even like in smaller settings, like in a small group where I mean, shit gets real, people share real things, but certain commitments or intentions are written off the backs of emotion versus like sober-minded contemplation, right? And sober-minded like agreements with yourself. What's your response to that?
I mean, it's impossible for you not to be emotional. You're pretty much just saying, I'm going to go to church and not be myself.
Right.
So you can't do that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I guard your heart to the extent of like, I don't want to overly commit because that's my tendency. Sure.
Yeah.
But you got to allow yourself to be present as Daniel. You know what I mean? And sometimes we get emotional listening to music on the car ride. Sometimes we hear a good word and it really moves us, you know? And I think it'd be a disservice for you not to allow yourself to experience that and do that.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying that you got to sign your life off to like a community or a church or whatever. But I think if you just take all that out, strip it all down and just say, man, I'm having a moment with God. I don't want nothing to taint that. You know what I mean?
Right.
Even if like everyone's saying, so you have a moment in service and it just like something just hits you, right?
Yeah.
Take that moment. Now, if the pastor's like, look, if you want to give your life up to Jesus, come to the altar, you don't have to respond to that. You can just still have your moment with Jesus, right?
Okay.
But I would say, don't allow yourself not to be you. If you know you emotional and you are sensitive,
right.
Then be that when you go there.
Men have feelings too.
Come on now.
Yeah. Okay. I like that. You said guard your heart, and that kind of I reacted to that. I actually love that. Guard your heart, because I think a common theme in all this of what I'm saying really is I want to be more authentic in my church experience. I think that, especially being Asian American, you go to church and you kind of just assume that everything they're saying is right. Right? Intentions are good. They're probably good. But I didn't do much guarding of my heart when it came to personal relationships, authoritative relationships, whatever. And a lot of times I would pretend to understand shit that I didn't, whether it be a sermon or a concept, or other people would share things they're going through, and I'm like, oh, word, me too. Amen, brother. But now I'm like, I'm going to slow it down, right? And fucking, whether it be an email or whatever, and be like, dude, when you said this, that did not make sense. What did you mean?
Great.
Breaking it down, right? I'm also going to chew it up. I'm also going to be, I'm 0 to 100. That's just kind of how I am. I need to work on that and balance it out. But I'm going to be practical as fuck. Meaning, if a pastor's giving a sermon or someone's giving a word, if I don't understand how I can apply that to my life and really make sense of it through my actions, I just don't see any value in it. Otherwise, we're just talking about freaking Harry Potter land. Like, it's just like, it's ideas, it's concepts, it's So, and I can already see that being potentially burdensome to like a church of like, oh, this motherfucker again. Like, he's asking questions. But like, I'm gonna be asking questions.
Ask questions.
I'm gonna guard my heart, my mind, my soul. And if my spidey senses are going off, like, best believe I'm gonna start asking questions around. So
and I think that's totally good. I mean, that's totally appropriate. I think it's good to be guarded. You don't want to be defensive, but you want to be like, I want to understand what this means. I want to know how this makes sense to my life, because ultimately, you're not looking for a lecture. You're looking to know God, meet with God in a personal level as well as a communal level. And so ask questions. And if it's truly a community that's willing to walk with you and grind with you, then they're gonna stick with it. You know what I mean?
You're right.
I would rather have someone ask than just be on the backseat and just say, okay, that was fine, and then nothing happened.
And as you said, I might be in the minority. I would prefer that more sermons would be more lecture-like.
Ooh, okay.
Because I'm just kind of a logical guy. Like, break down the bullets. This is the concept. This is point one, application point two. Don't tell me about an anecdote that's mixed in with a dream you had, that's mixed in with some calling on your life. Like, I can't follow that, bro. But, like, and also, I would challenge a pastor of, like, if you are unable to break down your message in a simple way, do you know what you're saying to me, dog?
Right.
So, yeah, it's just, I remember a lot of times I would listen to sermons and be so confused, thinking something was wrong with me. And I would ask my friends, like, what'd you get away from that? What would you take away? Like, I had no idea what the fuck was going on there. And so just, I think I want to be a lot more, I don't want to say academic about it, but like definitely more substantial.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? More palatable and just more digestible.
Yeah.
Like if I can't summarize what the message is, I miss the message.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be fun kind of like understanding what it, like, I think a good sermon really can dissect the word, teach it for what it is, teach it for how it's supposed to be written, and then be able to communicate this is how it matters to us, this is how it applies to us. And so you're right. I mean, we learned in seminary, like if you can't summarize your sermon in a sentence or two, it's too complicated.
Dude, okay. And before we go into the after church special here, I'll say that is like one of my bigger takeaways as an adult. It's like everybody wants to be, I'm sure everyone's been in a work setting or social setting where someone brings up a topic. It's like, oh, do you know what this is? Or are you familiar with this or that? Or they're using big ass words, complex like catchphrases, and they kind of puff their chest as if like, oh, you don't know this? Oh, damn. But for me, I'm like, dude, that's not intelligence. Because if you're the only one in the room that knows what the fuck you're talking about, like, have fun living alone. like true intelligence. Albert Einstein said the same shit to what you just said. It's like if you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it as well as you think you can. And so for me, it's like a good leader and someone that really knows their shit is someone that can explain it like I'm five, right? Somebody that can really make it easy to understand.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna be pretty. I'm gonna hold whatever church I go to like pretty accountable to that of like. Help me understand because I know I'm not the only one that's struggling to chew.
It's great.
That kind of thing.
Yep.
Okay, I like that. I like that first half, that first list. I have a couple more stuff I want to attack, but let's tell some stories.
Okay.
All right, see you guys there. All right. Welcome back to the After Church Special. I want to talk about actually some of the experiences I had growing up in college, specifically around the topic of dating and romance, the love marketplace, if you will. And let me be clear, I'm not here to bash on nobody, no institutions. I'm here to shed light on my experience because if anybody else is going through something similar, you're not alone. And quite frankly, it's not chill. So, let's rewind the clocks back. Up in my area, or in Seattle, actually, I want to say this is the same case for Portland too. It's like ethnic churches, it's kind of a small circle, like pastors know pastors. They're boys, they have a common mission. Churches will, cross-pollinate, overlap, whatever. And when you're in college, like, let's be real, you're thinking about two things, like, how do I not get broke? And how do I find some activity? Right? Relationally, sexually, whatever. And I just remember that, like, I don't know, I want to say there are like 4 or 5, maybe 6 churches in the area. And it's cool because you get to meet a lot of different people. But it also means a lot of different personalities and just kind of social structures to navigate. And I just remember very specifically how when it came to the topic of dating, looking back at it now, I thought pastors were way too involved, and there was some like market manipulation going around as far as individual stock, right? So hypothetically, let's say our boy Ray, young Ray Tao, the young dragon, comes into a church. Oh, this is my boy. Everyone meet him. Oh, cool. Everyone loves Ray. All the girls are, he's awesome. We want him. We thirsty. But then a pastor might say like, oh yeah, he's cool. But what about my guy here? Right? Nothing against Ray, but this guy's been walking with me. And I know his heart for Jesus. I know his heart of compassion. And yeah, Ray's cool, but you should check this guy out. it sounds very innocent, but that shit is manipulative as fuck. And they're influencing the minds and hearts of guys, girls, or whatever. And I've seen it like literally tear apart relationships and leave scars to a place where it's just like, it's just not okay. And so I always found that fascinating. And I remember it got to a point where I felt like I had to ask permission of a pastor to date someone at his church, like he's their fucking dad. And that's where I think it gets really cult-like and like murky. I'm like, damn, are you here to control them? Or are you here to empower them to find out who they are?
Sure.
Because what I do in bed with this woman has nothing to do with you. Maybe that's kind of intense, but you know what I'm saying though? It's
Sure.
like, it's like shit, man. Like I've seen the market swing where like a girl or a guy would be so highly sought after, and then a pastor would say something or a leader would say something and then drive the market the other way. And I don't know, I just always thought that was kind of weird. I think when it comes to relationships, it's between those two people. I know that it was probably coming from an intent of like protection, but like there's boundaries that need to be there. And it's just something that whenever I think about like things like my past trauma, that is an area that always, it gives me like the chills, like goosebumps. I'm like, this was so weird. Like why the hell are they in our business in that way? And why are they not giving us space to find out who we are? So I guess less of a story, more of sharing of an experience. But I guess if people out there, if you feel like someone is infringing upon like certain areas of your life, fucking speak up. Because like there is no right or wrong in that regard. Like if you feel violated in any kind of way, dude, you have a voice, and I just would encourage you not to ignore it or to suffocate it. Because at least for me, that resulted in a ton of bitterness and just like, again, I saw some of my closest friends get like fucking scarred and their romantic relationships ripped apart and manipulated, where even to this day I'll bring it up and be like, those motherfuckers, like I can't believe they fucking did that shit. So if you're a pastor, nothing personal, I'm just saying, people gotta breathe, people gotta figure out who they are, people go and kiss. This chill's part of life. That's all.
Interesting. Yeah.
You have any thoughts on that?
I mean, I mean, granted, like I get what you're trying to say, but I'm like, I think I would wait until you get into a place of leadership where you oversee people to say, how much do I want to shepherd and love and protect before I get overbearing, you know what I mean? And so, I mean, I agree, like, you know, you got to let people live and you got to allow your message or the biblical message to take root in people's lives.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, everyone takes stock in some people's opinion.
Right.
Maybe some people take a pastor's opinion a little too much.
Right.
Which I think that's what you're trying to say is like the pastor has so much power that it could swing a relationship one way or another.
Yes.
And so, yeah, okay.
That was amazing. What are your thoughts, Sam? That one was a 2 out of 10, Daniel. No, yeah. I get what you're saying because like, dude, me and my friends will talk about like shit we don't approve of or things we didn't like about how our parents raised us, and so we're like, oh, we're never gonna be like that. Right. We're never gonna know until we have a fucking child that we're gonna be carrying over. But yeah, last thing I'll say is I like what you said. Yeah, take influence and feedback, I guess, with a grain of salt. Because another thing I'll share is I remember being in a relationship and one church leader, pastor, telling, like, they would tell me that I didn't love the girl when I thought I loved her, and I'd be like, but I think, no, you don't love her though. You don't love her. I don't? Fuck, I don't love her. And that, it would affect me in our relationship, right? And I'm just like, take it with a grain of salt. And this ties back to what we were saying earlier in the episode. Like, really, think for yourselves, guys. Think for yourselves. Because you're not always going to be in that community. And at the end of the day, it's about what happens between your ears when you're alone. Because that's what you truly believe. So that's my little spiel here. Over to you, sir.
Yeah. I think one of the things that I've really learned more so in this season now is kind of deeply understanding, I like the way you said, holistic identity, the idea that I want to know a little bit more of who I am. Because I think we have a lot of people in the church, on the fringes of churches, that can say, I think I know God loves me, but I don't really fully love myself. I think that's like a very popular statement that people are gravitating towards, is the idea that okay, I hear that I've been forgiven, but I can't forgive myself. And so I think part of holistic identity is being able to understand, who you are before God, like you are His beloved one, and what that really means. And so we hear it in the church, like, where does your identity lie?
Yeah,
and
all the time.
And the very biblical statement is, my identity is in Jesus, 100%, right? But I think if you peel that onion, I think to know that your identity is in Jesus also is understanding who you are as an individual, how you were created
As a human.
as in the flesh, right?
Right.
And so I think it's not just about knowing God, but understanding that I'm on the discovery of finding myself, right? And I'd say for people of color, for my immigrant brothers and sisters, understanding your cultural identity, your ethnic identity matters. Like knowing the importance of how you look, knowing the importance of your traditions, language,
your history.
etc. All of that matters in understanding our, I would say, holistic identity, because it all has a story, right? And I am one, and you call me progressive, I am one that rejects the idea that all you need to know is just Jesus, the Bible, culture doesn't matter, ethnicity doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I'm like, you can't know the Bible unless you understand culture and tradition. You can't understand the Bible without knowing Jewish tradition, Armenian tradition, Jewish tradition, Samaritan tradition and culture and language. Like, it's impossible for you to not read the Bible without having to learn their culture, tradition, and language. So why does my culture, tradition, and language not matter now? And so that's what I would say. All of this is a part of our identities. Like, we need to be able to take ownership and say, look, sometimes I don't love being a Korean, but damn it, that's a part of who I am. I need to be able to peel that and be able to find myself as God didn't make no mistake making me Korean American. So I want to be able to explore that before the Lord in the midst of my community, so that I could be, more in tune with my identity in God and my community.
That was extra crispy. All right, let me say what I heard. That to me was a version of debunking, and that what you're debunking is, all we are is spiritual beings, and our identity is purely spiritual and within the church. I grew up that way, where it was like people didn't talk about culture, and it was just about, like, it was almost taboo. Like, no, we're all sons and daughters of Christ. That's our identity, and we're spiritual beings. Deny your flesh.
Yeah, all of which is true.
But maybe we'll get into that later. But for me, I get what the debunk is like. Dude, yes, there's some truth in that, but, like, don't deny the realities of the human experience. We're Korean, and so we have very nuanced and specific things specific to us as Koreans that we need to be mindful of, because we can't experience the fullness of what God has to offer if we deny a huge part of who we are, which is Korean American, or whatever ethnicity you might be. And so, damn, that was kind of fire, dude.
Yeah, that's why I think, when we talk about, like, Black Lives and Stop Asian Hate, and for our Hispanic brothers and sisters and our Native Americans,
Jewish hate, which I've seen is going on.
All of that stuff matters. You know what I mean? And so that's why I'm like, if we are going to be a collective community, we have to know each other's stories, and part of that story is how we look, where we've come from, all of that stuff, our language, and so I have stories upon stories of, like, I think one of the things that really shaped my ethnic identity, mixed in with understanding my spiritual identity in Christ, was, I remember in seminary, the professor comes out and he had 3 pictures. The first picture was the picture that we all grew up with, that white Jesus, right?
Yeah.
And so he's like, how many of you are familiar with this? You feel comfortable with this picture? Everyone raises their hand. And then he brings out a picture of a black Jesus. How many feel comfortable with this? A third raise their hand. Next person, the next picture is like, this Native American Jesus. How many feel comfortable with this?
And no Asian Jesus?
No, he didn't have one yet. But I'm sure he had.
Fucked up. Okay.
But, like, you see less and less hands feel comfortable.
Yeah.
I was one of them. I didn't raise my hand for Black Jesus. I didn't raise my hand for the Native American Jesus.
Yeah.
And I realized that we become so comfortable with this white Jesus because we're taught, like, that's the image of Jesus, when in reality, Jesus wasn't, blonde hair, blue-eyed, right?
Facts.
And so I realized then the importance of understanding ethnic identity. Just as much as understanding, the spiritual identity.
Yeah.
And so that's why I was like, okay, I need to find this out. Like, I need to understand this.
I know this after church special might be a little bit longer than others, but this is important. I like that, because if Jesus was reincarnated today, I think he wouldn't underseason his food as much as we might assume. I don't think his first sauce of choice would be ketchup.
I don't like ketchup.
But I don't like ketchup either. But yeah, I mean, I guess I'll wrap up with this. It's like ethnicity, culture, where you come from is so important, and I think the reality is a lot of religion and Christianity was created, orchestrated, instrumented by white people. Not all white people are bad guys. Let's be honest.
Yeah, they're not the antagonists.
They're not. But I think my kind of takeaway there might be a hot take. I am a supporter of Black Lives Matter. I'm a supporter of Stop Asian Hate. But I think what's really going to bring things home is actually not focusing so much on individual ethnic kind of movements, but it's more about like stop white supremacy. You know what I'm saying? Cheers to that.
Cheers.
All right. Let us know what you guys think. Back to the show. All right, guys. Back to the regular programming. We realized in between takes that the concept and the word liturgy is still confusing. Like, I still don't fully get it. So we're going to make a quick U-turn here and get back to it. So the way I understood it was like liturgy is some form of like structure and concept, but like the actual execution of it is literally, it's like a chant or a prayer or an incantation of like, okay, not casting spells and shit, but like it's a script that you as a church body and the pastor will cite to one another. Yeah?
Yeah.
But like break that down even more. Like why do people do it and why do you like it? And like, what's an example of some liturgies?
I think when we think of, if you think of like old school church, you'll probably remember like the dudes up in the front, all white, maybe have a staff or something like that. And there's some the organ music playing in the back, and it's like a very monotone, just he's reading a passage, right? Yeah. And then as he finishes reading the passage, a congregation may respond as such. I think for millennials, it's harder for us to see that and be like, oh, I want to be a part of that, because we may look at that as like, that's just boring. Like this is just weird, because we didn't grow up that way, right? Right. But I think for me, because I see the beauty in tradition and the culture behind it, that I'm like, man, it brings everyone together to be in the same mindset, right? So understanding the same scripture, we all repeating the same passage, right? If you're reading the Psalms or whatever, it allows us to be a community together. So I love diversity. I love different people coming together. But what unifies us? And so what liturgy does, it brings us all together to say and pray the same thing that allows us to be in a common bond, right? And so sometimes like, a part of a liturgy would be like a call to worship, where they'll read a psalm. They'll read one verse, and then the pastor reads another verse. We read one verse, the pastor reads another verse. And if you do it right, it becomes a deeply spiritual moment where it allows us to really understand the power of community in God, that says, wow, we are all in this together. It
sounds like it's like a communal prayer thing.
Absolutely. Communal prayer with structure.
But what I don't get is, can it change from week to week?
Yeah, like different, I mean, one week you'll read maybe like Psalms 85, another week you'll read a different Psalms or whatever.
What happens if I roll up in the church and I don't fuck with the liturgy this week? Am I just going to not say it?
Yeah, because this is the beauty thing about community is you may not mess with it, but someone else may deeply. And so the whole idea of it is...
what's the purpose of it? What's the intent?
If my boy is down, the whole point of like biblical community is, if my boy's down, I want to be down with him. Right? If your boy is struggling, you want to be in the trenches with him. Yeah. Right? Your joys are my joys, my hurt is your hurt. So the whole premise of liturgy, the whole premise of communal service is that you may not mess with it, but someone else may. And so it allows us to really come together like in intercession, in corporate community. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I don't think people know what intercession is. But.
Okay. Where you can, pray for the X person, right? And so it allows us to all be in the same place, in the same mindset. My joys are your joys. My hurt is your hurt. And we're going to go before the Lord together.
So it's about like unification?
Kind of, yeah.
Like a polymerization card?
Kind of. I don't know what that means, but
it's a Yu-Gi-Oh call out.
All right.
Okay, so what as you said that, I'm going to try to make it a little less religious. I don't know if I can. But when you said that, literally, I thought of Legion of Boom Seahawks. You know, when they get all fucking hyped up in the middle. Who's got my back? I got your back.
Yeah.
That type of shit where, like, you're fucking rallying each other.
That is a type of liturgy. Yeah.
Okay. Legion of Boom, R.I.P.
Right.
We miss you guys.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. You're right, though.
Because it takes away the individualism and it turns it into what is supposed to be communalism.
Oh.
Does that make sense? So when you think about your personal relationship with your boys, right?
Yeah.
When you're hurting, you're going through something, you want your boys to be able to say, I got you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's what liturgy helps us get into is we got this together before God, that we're going to come up, that we're going to, worship, we're going to serve, we're going to, it's basically helps us come into a common ground. Right.
Okay.
And so you may not always love it, but it's going to hit someone else. And
I
say,
got you.
We in this.
Okay. Not only is it about bond and unification, but as an individual, it is an acknowledgement that it's not just about me. It's not just about us as individuals. We are more than the sum of our parts, and we're going to proclaim that through this spell. Not spell, but yes. No, I get what you're saying. I respect the beauty in what that has to offer.
Yeah.
Dope.
Yeah. We'll do it one of these days. It's going to be cool.
On air. You guys better recite that shit. Okay, back to what we're saying about I want to be more conscious as I navigate and do church again. Another thing, I'm actually very interested to get your thoughts on this. When I go back to church again, I'm just not going to judge anybody. I'm not going to get in anyone's business. I'm not going to tell anybody what to do or not to do. And I'm not going to I'm not going to cross boundaries and kind of impose my will or theologies at all.
Sure.
Because I used to do that thinking that I did that underneath a fake wall of accountability and love and trust and all that. But it's like, dude, one thing I feel like everybody heard, only God can judge. And I don't think there's any fucking exceptions to that. I think that there's a lot of subconscious judgment. I think there's a lot of toxicity.
Right.
I think there's beauty in holding people accountable, but they have to ask for it. And I think my life got a lot lighter when I realized people doing things that I might not do or agree with, let them do it, because it's not about you. God didn't put me on this earth to judge Ray and make sure this boy lives life well. God's going to judge Ray. Ray's got his life. Ray's got his boundaries. Now, if he comes to me in relationship and says, I'm struggling with X or Y, can you help me with accountability here? Bet. I'm always there. But I think about this in leadership and parenting. The only thing you can ever offer somebody, you can never control them. All you can ever offer them is your perspective and thoughts, and they didn't make a choice.
Sure.
And so next time I go to church, I'm literally going to be hyper conscious on not just not judging. So what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think everyone has an opinion about somebody.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I think I think it's beneficial for people in the community to be able to observe someone through the lens of grace, through the lens of love, before they have any sort of opinion because of what they do, what people say about them, or what they have. That stuff is just superficial. That stuff don't matter. And so I would rather be in a part of a community where I'm connecting with someone's heart, someone's soul.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so we're not supposed to condemn people to heaven or hell anyways. So why? We're not going to help define you're a Christian or not.
Right.
And so, if you're going to bring a heart of inclusivity.
Right.
I want to be a part of the community. I want to help you be a part of the community and grow together in that, that we could live faithfully before God and our community. So, yeah.
But I want to drill down, because condemning someone to heaven or hell, that's the extreme, right? Or condemning someone as you're Christian or not. Very extreme. But I found myself condemning people on the day-to-day. For doing drugs, smoking weed, sleeping around. Not tithing 10%.
Oh, I see.
I've noticed you've been coming to church in your bummy ass clothes for a month now. You give no fucks, bro. Little shit like that. Because it stacks and it's death by 1,000 cuts.
Yeah.
So I think I'm gonna be way more just I'm just gonna have way more chill when it comes to church.
Yeah, I think on the flip side, then you have to be very mindful of how you because I think at the flip side, we could judge Christian leaders, Christian pastors, if they're not being a leader or a pastor. So if you're going to have this uniformal, I'm not going to judge anybody, then that criteria has to be kind of
consistent.
Yeah, covered to them as well. You know what I mean?
And I think that's actually beautiful because that comes into play with what church you decide to join.
Yeah.
Some people like that shit. Some people want a lot of structure and oversight, and they might need it.
Yeah.
Cool. I think for myself though,
where you're at.
Yeah, bro. Step back. Where I'm at right now, it might change, but like I just don't want any of that because just you choose your own destiny and your own fate, and I just keep going back to I'm so critical of myself.
Yeah.
Only God can judge. There is no exception. No exception. Like literally I was not put here to judge other people. If anything, I feel like we were put here to love.
Yeah.
Because people judge, dude, we are our own worst critic most cases.
Yeah.
It's like, do we really need somebody else
to tell you how much of a mess up you are?
Right. like fucking confirming like, dude, you're a fuck up, dude. Right? Maybe not in those exact words, but in intent or in message. Maybe that too.
Yeah.
So that's another thing I'm definitely gonna be mindful of.
Yeah.
Another thing, dude, if my pastor or my church is not directly, not indirectly, not passively, if they're not directly tying what we're learning to real life, I'm talking racism, I'm talking about social issues, don't tell me it's political, bro. This is fucking life. This is not politics, it's the human experience. Where do you stand? Because if you're going to lead this body, I'm going to follow you, I better know exactly where you stand on these things.
Sure.
Right? I know I'm being a little tense right now, but like, it's like, that's like life happens outside of church. And so if we're not talking about things that tie to that, if I'm not being equipped to feel good about how I navigate life from Monday to Saturday, then we're just doing kumbaya shit.
That's fair.
So
That's
you're down with that? Do you foresee pushback on like, well, because like companies will, I just spit there, sorry guys. But companies will they'll refrain from making certain comments or siding with certain things on political issues. I can just see churches getting uncomfortable with having to pick a side.
Some are, but I have tons of friends that are in pastoral positions that have made stands. Okay, and they're doing some really beautiful things. Hard because not everyone agrees, but you got to make a stand. You can't be passive. So you make a stand. So I respect them for it.
And on the other side, it's like we've talked about this before too. Pastors, like, I think being a pastor is very special. It's a very unique form of leadership, right? It crosses personal, spiritual, professional, all this kind of stuff. 100%. But the church is not about you.
Period.
It's not about you. And so even if you do take a stand, that's your stand, right? As a person, as an individual. If I were to go to a church that you were pastoring and you took a stand that I did not agree with, I would hope I'm not going to judge the entire body because that's just Sam Townsend. And I think there's beauty in understanding how to coexist in disagreement. I think there's beauty in agreeing to disagree and not condemning somebody for certain things. Yeah. So
it's hard as crap, but
it is. And like, dude, again, like in positions of leadership, everyone says they want to be a leader until they get put into that position. It's fucking hard, right? Like it's a lot of pressure and all that. But again, to bring it back for me, I'm just like, dude, a lot of what I learned was only relevant within the community of the church or within the walls of the church. And I felt like a fake out in the real world because no one's talking about no John 3:16 in the office. No one's talking about Pharisees and shit. Like, translate to that shit for 2021, right? Like, what does that mean for us today? And don't tell me to go read about no history about the Philistines or whatever the fuck it is. It's like, today, how do I apply this? If anything, I remember the church telling me like, well, Daniel, I'm not going to spoon feed you. You got to go find it out for yourself. And honestly, I was like, damn, so I gotta be a fucking motherfucking historian? And like, you're telling me before I read Matthew, I gotta go read about fucking the Sea of Galilee and the political structure of Pharisees and all this type of shit? Like, I don't know, that never sat right with me. And honestly, I was like, motherfucker, isn't that your job? Isn't your job to be the one to do that so I don't have to? Like, and you're the teacher of things? But anyways, I think just current state, real life application and extending teachings to make it applicable to that is just so important and something I haven't experienced yet, to be quite honest. So I want to flip it to you now because I've gone to church with you. I've gone to church under you. It's like what, either for myself specifically or like other people you know, what do you think are some like blind spots or things where you're like, ooh, I would hope for those that got hurt and they come back, they should be a little bit more mindful about this or that.
Yeah, I think you gotta know your implicit biases. You gotta know what baggage you bring.
Like self-awareness, you're saying.
Yeah, you gotta be aware. Like, maybe some of you guys are just gonna be a handful, and you got to give grace for the church body and for the leaders to mess up, because if you're a handful, don't expect them to be perfect with you, right? To handle people like you, but that's what community is about. That's what being in a body is about, right? And I would say you don't have to sugarcoat it, but I am saying as you bring yourself, be aware that there's going to be some bumps and bruises. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I would say if you're going to come in bringing all of yourself, good, bad, and the ugly. Like bring it, challenge, but also uplift. You know what I mean? Be an encouragement rather than being a pain in the ass.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Let me chop that up in two things, because I heard one is effectively like, have some chill and extend some grace. Because
that's good.
Even as you said that, I felt a little bit personally attacked, but it was a good type of personally attacked, because I was like, I'm probably gonna come at it a little bit too OD with like fucking just notes, just judging shit. Right. Probably not too healthy. So that's just understanding the humanity of it all. Right. That pastor takes shits that smell bad too. That pastor's sinning.
I've never heard that before, but that's
everyone takes out their own trash, all that type of shit. So they're human. Leave room for that. And the second thing you're saying is. Don't be afraid to bring all of who you are.
All of it.
But then that's kind of like that's an invitation to be vulnerable. Right?
It's scary, but true.
It's scary, especially if they've been hurt for being vulnerable in the past, right?
Yep.
So it's like, I guess the advice here is to be brave in that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not saying you got to do that within the first couple weeks.
Yeah, right.
But when you feel comfortable enough to say, I am wanting to get into that place of just being committed and grow. Yeah. There is no end around. Vulnerability and transparency to me is a major value ethic that I hold, simply because one, I see it as being biblical, because you can't develop true community without being vulnerable and transparent. It's impossible. Right? And so I think as you walk in that place of understanding how I've been through life, how I've seen God work in my life, how I don't see God in my life, it allows true community to be built, right? And so that's why I think bringing your full self into that picture allows your faith to be challenged, but also grow, right? Yeah. And so not only bringing that aspect, but bringing that part of you that is excited to be there, that is wanting to be there, that's an encouragement, right? Yeah. Because not only are you bringing your hurt, you're also bringing the joys of your gifts, your talents, all that stuff. Like all that is what builds up the community. And so bring that, you know what I mean?
I like that.
Don't just be that dude in the back just looks pissed off, writing notes about how everything sucks. But bring yourself. bring yourself that allows the betterment of the church, the betterment of the community around you. And so
I keep like comparing this to dating, because it's like similar principles, right? Like you're gonna hit a wall until you get vulnerable and transparent enough about how you really feel, bringing about who you are and bringing all of that you are. So I totally see the value in that. Connecting it to the theme of what I said earlier about like I want to apply things to the real world, and our team has talked about this off air. Another thing I'm going to be pretty, I'll say, critical about, or at least very forward about. What is this church doing to impact the community?
Come on, absolutely.
Like literally, don't. Oh, we're praying for them. Okay, everyone fucking do that. Like what? We're, you know what I'm saying? It's just so whack. Like, but we're praying for them. We have community. No. Literally. What actions are we taking? What are the
feet of Jesus?
What are the outcomes and results that people that don't go to this church are feeling? Because if it's just in this bubble, dude, that's just not going anywhere. And so, and that's not just me shitting on churches, because it's like I could argue part of it, if I'm going to church, is like, well, then be the change you want to see, that kind of shit. But like at the same time, if this is a community, it's a structure, it's an organization, what are the outputs? What are the results, and what are the impacts? And
it's good.
I would love to see. I remember growing up, my mom would always tell me this. She would say, and pastors would say, people should be able to know that you're Christian, not by what you're saying, but how you're living and what you're doing. They should identify us as different. Because if our religion is true, we theoretically should be the most peaceful, the most fulfilled. It's like when you see somebody that's killing it in life, and you're like, I want to live that. Something's different about them. I think that should apply for the body as well. Like, damn, this. That's why, shout out to Mormons out there. It's kind of interesting. This might be a little bit of a curveball, but like, I'm impressed at how well they do religion, because it's like, damn, I feel like I don't hear anything bad about them as a brand, but like Christians are just fucking it up. But Mormons, like, I always hear they're super nice. They do, they serve, they impact their communities, they're nice to other people, all that kind of stuff. And I'm just like, damn, I wish, what would life be like if Christians had that reputation of like doing things the right way? And so, thoughts there?
Yeah, the Mormon thing is a little bit of a curveball. I have friends that are Mormons, and I have friends that are not, but that doesn't really matter. I think you're right. I think it's about how we embody the gospel. I think it's about how we live our lives. It's about how we translate, the good news of Jesus into, the community, right? And so my favorite quote that I grew up with after, working as a, counselor case manager was, "Be love with skin on it," right? Like, that to me is like a powerful image of like love with skin on it. Jesus was love with skin on it, right? It's not just a concept, not just a theory. It looks like something. You can feel it, right? That's why I'm a big hugger. And so I think, like let's be the church.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think it's a good challenge for the church to be present. And one of my favorite professors was like, look, if you're a healthy, vibrant, fruitful church if you were to close down, right?
Yeah.
Say your church was in Shoreline. If the church closed down, that the city would miss you, would grieve over the closing of your doors. That's when you know you got a legit church. If the community around you misses you, pleading for your
presence,
vibrancy, your presence, exactly. That's when you know you got a legit church.
Damn,
and I agree.
You're kind of on fire today, bro. I love that. A common theme of what I'm sharing here is like it's all very practical, all about real life. We were just talking about this off air for a little bit too. Another thing that I'm more curious to explore is when I grew up, you might be able to relate. I feel like I was taught that science and like spirituality and religion can't really coexist. It's like pick one or the other.
Right.
We can't explain everything, Daniel, and don't stop looking for it because we can't understand everything. We don't understand God.
Right.
But shit, man, technology is getting good. We're knowing a lot more.
It's true.
And if God is real, I don't know. I personally don't think he designed the world in a way where it's like, I'm real, but I'm going to cap human capability off so you can't understand certain things. I just don't think science and God are mutually exclusive, is I guess what I'm saying.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'm going to be a little bit more curious about that. And I understand that pastors aren't fucking PhD scientists.
No.
I don't think that's an expectation, but I am going to ask some questions around some of those things to help connect the dots.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, for pastors out there, if you don't know, just fucking say it. Because you're going to get my respect by saying, fuck, that's a great question. I don't know, but let's find out together. Versus just trying to fucking cast some voodoo John 3:16 on me. Well, the verse says this, and if you think about that, and just, bro, if you don't know, you don't know, chill. Like, let's figure it out together. But, like, again, that, like, I just don't like this idea of, like, blind faith.
Or over-spiritualizing.
Over-spiritualized, sorry. That would be a better way to put it. Because, like, we're humans. I think I felt like being human and the idea of that was so discouraged in my experience. Like, be spiritual. Think about your soul. Think about that. I get that. But like, dude, our life is a physical life.
Right.
Our life is done here on earth.
100%.
And if we deny or ignore that, then like we're just, we're in denial.
Yeah.
And so I just don't like that idea. Anything else?
No, I mean, I think venture out. Like go on with the open heart. If you don't feel comfortable going to church by yourself, phone a friend.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I mean, again, it's not about the church you go to per se. It's about knowing and experiencing God for yourself again. Especially for those who've been hurt.
Wait, I like that.
You know what I mean?
It's not about it's not about the brand or the name in front of the church.
Right.
It's about the man behind all of that, right?
Yeah.
The man being God, by the way.
Yes.
But
you want that's the journey, that's the quest, right?
Interesting.
And so that's what I would encourage people, right? People are gonna mess up. The hurt's gonna be there.
Right.
You're gonna get jaded. Vice versa. You might say things that's out of your own brokenness, whatever. That's part of the journey, right? But I would say in that, keep in mind the most important thing. The most important thing is to connect with God again, to be able to hear and know and experience love in your life where it was that it's real, and it has a handlebar for you to say, okay,
right, real for you.
Yeah. So not because your mama said it, not
Right.
because your community says it, it's because it has to start with this personal transformation, right? This personal experience, right? And so that can only be done. No one can live it out for you. It has to be done within your own place. So it's you practicing grace, humility, and just coming with it with an open hand. So
I like it.
yep.
I like it. All right, this was a good one. I'm a little nervous. This reminds me back of like when I made a conscious decision to get back into dating, and you're just kind of like, or when people are pregnant and they just read all these books and like, fuck, I don't know how to prepare for this. I feel
Exciting.
a little bit. Actually, I'm not going to pretend like I know what that feels like. I'm sorry, ladies. I have no fucking clue. But point being, I'm a little anxious to get back into it. But I'm grateful to be able to chop this up and just unfiltered share what I have to be concerned about or like weary of, and just I'm excited to get in the game, I guess.
Yeah.
So thanks for tuning in, guys. Like we said earlier, this is episode 9. Episode 10 we're thinking is going to be kind of season 1, so we'll recap how we move forward. But as always, let us know what you guys are thinking. I'm sure a lot of you out there or if you're not going to church or maybe considering it, especially with COVID, we see the light at the end of the tunnel here. So hopefully some of you resonated with what we had to say. And if there are other aspects you would like us to chop up, let us know. Yeah.
Peace.
Later.
Thanks, guys, for tuning in. Continue to like, comment, share. We love that we're on a journey together. We're trying to explore what kind of church we want to get into, how we want to be part of a community. So it's not an easy task, but we're going to do it together. Stay tuned, and God be with you. Peace.